I'm Lawrence Cohn, the director of the Institute for South Asian Studies here at Berkeley. I wanted to thank my colleague, Professor Zakir. The Regents lectureship is a highly coveted and competitive lectureship. Each year, groups from around campus apply to nominate the annual Regents lecture. This year, a group of faculty, many of whom are here, and I'll thank a bit later, working with Zakir, created a masterful application based, of course, upon the brilliance of Zakir Hussain, and we're quite delighted. Finally, let me introduce my colleague, Professor Zakir. Dr. Bakri came to Berkeley from Columbia University, where she was the director of the South Asia Institute. She is a professor both in the departments of history and in South and Southeast Asian studies. And she is the faculty to do this because she wrote a book which has transformed how we think about the history of Hindustani music. It's a book called Two Men and Music. It's very wise, it's very erudite, and it really rethinks entirely the history of music. When I taught it in my graduate seminar, we almost had fistfights because how to think about music is quite important. She is an extraordinary scholar, and she's going to welcome Hussain.
It is impossible to introduce an icon like Ustad Zakir Hussain in 5 minutes, but let me just give you some highlights. Zakir Hussain, Ustad Zakir Hussain, classical tabla virtuoso, learnt his music from his own legendary father, Ustad Allah Rakha. Born March 9, 1951 in Bombay, he attended St. Xavier's College, but he's not only a classical tabla maestro, he is and has been the chief architect of the contemporary world music movement as well. Beginning with Shakti, which he founded with John McLaughlin and El Shankar, Zakir Hussain has recorded and performed with artists as diverse as Pharoah Sanders, Yo-Yo Ma, and Mark Morris. The recipient of more awards and honours than I can list here, let me note just a few, both Indian and international. The Padma Shri in 1988, the Indo-American Award for his cultural contribution to US-India relations, the Sangeet Natak Academy Award, the National Heritage Foundation Award, the Padma Bhushan in 2002, a Grammy for his global drum project in 2009. He was also named an officer in France's Order of Letters, Arts and Letters by the French Ministry of Culture for his extraordinary artistic and cultural contribution. Now, since I have the interviewer's privilege to open this conversation, I'd like to begin with a personal tribute. There were other musicians performing in the late 60s and the 70s, both vocal and tabla. But in the words of Joan Baez, Zakir Hussain burst on the scene, already a legend. Join me in welcoming to the stage Ustad Zakir Hussain.
Good evening and thank you very much. Leonard, can you turn the low end down on this? It's a little booming. So, welcome. It is a great pleasure and honor to be here today, to be asked to do this and to be sitting on the stage with Dr. Andre. And on my left is another young, exciting, arriving Indian musician who is really a fabulous, fabulous singer. But today he appears here to help me out playing the harmonium. But we won't let him get away with just that. Please join me in welcoming Mahesh Kale. I'm sure that there's a lot that we're going to talk about, and since I have no clue what's that going to be, I'm one of those Indian musicians who, really firmly believes in our tradition, which is to improvise. So you arrive at a lecture, and where you're supposed to be able to, have some sort of a, well-conceived plan. My most well-conceived plan is to, well, let's go there and improvise, see what happens. But that's why Dr. Sahib is here, and so I'd like her to, let's get the ball rolling, see what's going on.
Happy to do that. Happy to do that. So Zakir, I'm going to stay with the personal. I said in my introduction to you that you burst on the scene, already a legend. And I want to expand on that, what you did for my generation, which is 10 years younger than you, was that you made Indian
that
classical
did not have
music.
to be stated.
I'm getting myself into trouble already, am I not? Anyway, that's what you did for our generation. Was that you made Indian classical music, and the tabla in particular, if I may use this word, sort of modern, hip, but you did it without losing any of its rigor, any of its traditions, any of its history, at a time when we were listening to the Beatles, to the Rolling Stones, to CCR. We didn't know what the Bayou was, but we were listening to Down. Yeah? By the force of your playing and the relationship with your father, which we just saw, you actually took a generation and returned its gaze to Indian classical music. You did it with the IIT music festivals, which I remember. You did it with the St. Xavier's festivals. Can we start there? Can you tell us something about how you got involved with those, and whether that was in fact anything to do with your intention at all?
Well, you have to go back in time. I mean, I have to go back in time to tell you how I was, just like any other Indian young person, very much taken by the glamour, by the glitter of the Western world, which we saw glimpses of in movie theaters and occasional records and tapes, cassette tapes and stuff. And so my main ambition at that time was to become good enough a tabla player to be invited out of India to go play abroad, and then just walk into Mick Jagger's house and say, okay, here I am, let's do it. And it was supposed to be that easy. But obviously it wasn't. But at the same time, I ran into people who not only explained to me that it wasn't that easy, but also point out to me how wondrous and incredible my house actually was, that I had left to run away somewhere else. I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to, wear the bling and glittery jackets and stuff, play drums and, do the whole routine. I even joined a rock and roll band when I first got here in America. I was playing a rock and roll band, believe it or not. It was, carrying the Marshall amps and setting them up and having the guitar player turn them up really loud right behind me. And it was interesting. But it was people like George Harrison or John McLaughlin or Mickey Hart who actually pointed out to me, what's the matter with you? We love you for what you've got. What you bring to the table is something so incredible, so precious. It's part of the Shangri-La that we are all looking for. It was for them drops from heaven, the music that I brought, and to them it was, and I have to tell you, I was talking to George Harrison once, and And I was, talking about how I wanted to be this rock guy. And the topic went to you're a sitar, you learned sitar, why don't you play sitar, more in concerts and stuff. And he said to me, Zakir, I play sitar, but I don't play good enough sitar to do justice to it on stage and to pay homage to this tradition the way it needs to be. But I can take my guitar and I can take all that information I've got and put it on my guitar and make my guitar that much more how should I say, colorful, with so many traditions spanning into it, and being able to play all those riffs that I have learned from Ravi, and be able to give my respects and reverence to this tradition through that. I cannot be an Indian musician. And you should consider this possibility that you want to be a drummer, or you want to be a rock star. And if you start to play drums, you'll be one of the 5,000 whose names I already have in my list. And you'll be 5,001. So, I'll call the first 5. Why would I get down to 5,001? You'd just be one of the regular drummer kind of people. But when you play the tabla, and you can do everything on the tabla that a drummer can do, or a conga player can do, or a timbali player can do, you make this instrument be that much more versatile, and therefore that much more important to me. I mean, you've got music that is thousands of years old, and it's one of the greatest form of music with pristine meditative quality and rejuvenating powers inside of it. And we are all looking for that, and you want to give that up. Why? So I just started thinking about it, and then took another look. So that, you look, when you're inside your house, you can see it, and it's fine. But when you're outside the house, you look at it differently. You see the shape of it, you see how the windows come out, and how the doors open, and how the edges are, and you notice the beauty of how your house looks a little differently. And when someone else is showing you the beauty through their eyes, it's that much more profound, that much more expanded. And so suddenly I started to look at that, and I realized, yes, that is true. I am who I am, and trying to be someone else will not change that. We have a saying in India that when a crow tries to walk like a peacock, it's possible that he will forget his own walk and then end up floundering so badly because he won't be here or he won't be there. He'll just be stuck in the middle and not knowing, losing his identity. So that was where I was. And because of that turnaround, it is possible that the strength of that conviction, that focus and that passion coming back to me sort of projected out in such a way that it brought along with me the young generation, slightly younger than me generation, along with me to this. So they also experienced this newfound, view of our own culture. Not to mention the fact that the world was respecting it, honoring it, loving it in such a way that all of us young people were feeling proud of our art, our culture, and this newfound, respect for our own culture, and coming through not just me, but people who I was playing with in those days, who were the young face of Indian music, like Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma, Pandit Hari Prasad Chaurasia, Ustad Amjad Ali Khan Sahab, various other artists like Rais Khan Sahab and so on. We were all, even though in age that slight difference, but we were all sort of coming at the same time. We were educated, we looked decent, we could converse with people, we were not that punch, I once went to play a concert in Patna from Mumbai. I was 12, 13 years old. And I arrived at Patna station, and I got off the train after about a 2-day journey. And then I waited for an hour and a half, nobody came to receive me to go play the concert. After a while, a gentleman who was just kind of, on the periphery, just kind of there, he walked up to me and said, "Are you Zakir Hussain?" Or do you know Zakir Hussain? I said, "Why do you ask?" He said, "I see a tabla case, but I don't see Zakir Hussain." And I told him, "I'm Zakir Hussain. I was 13 years old." And he said, "Oh my God," he literally told me he was expecting somebody with a paunch, with pan drool, red stuff, betel nut stuff, and, just kind of holding extra cigarette or pan in his hand. That was the image that most of India had of musicians, which was not very inviting. But these musicians, like who I mentioned, and Pandit Ravi Shankar, they were all people who were, they appeared to be what the music was, and so that connection could be made. We were also easily available. People could come up to us and talk to us. They look at us and say, "Oh yeah, I am in college. He's in college. He's playing. He's like one of us." So that was important. And my newfound love for my music, that passion, it was maybe infectious, I don't know. So it kind of brought everyone else along for the ride too, because along with me, they were discovering what Indian art and culture really was all about. And so I guess we kind of discovered this together, as opposed to me finding it and then that. And I have to say that it's probably why, when you have friends who you can speak to, and the friends who you are with, who see the same sunset, and you can talk to them about that sunset and the beauty of it, and they can relate to it with you. I think that strengthens your belief and you're on the right track, that you're finding it. So the young people of that time, that generation, resonated. They related to what we were saying, and we got that feeling that they were with us. So our passion increased even further, and we kind of helped each other to rediscover what Indian art and culture was all about.
So let me, in what you described in your conversations with George Harrison, you were already a sort of child prodigy by then. You were playing extraordinary tabla. Can I ask you a little bit about that, based on something that you said in the documentary, The Speaking Hand? I'm going to use your own words. I know it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I wonder if you could say a little bit about it.
I'm finally a child prodigy.
Well, that's wonderful. But let me tell you what you said in that documentary.
Okay.
You said tabla, growing up, was an accepted, essential, but unnoticed part of my life. It's a wonderful thing to say. You said, "I loved playing tabla, but I did not love sitting for 5 hours and playing tabla." You said, "Tabla was a continued returning point for me. I'd go out, I'd come back, I'd play a little, I'd go play cricket, I'd come back, I'd play kho-kho, and come back." That's sort of not one standard sense of how, shall we say, child prodigies, I'm going to use that word, sort of master it. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What did you mean by that? How did you deal with the fact that, if you will, you had this extraordinary talent and you were a 12-year-old?
Well, first of all, I feel bad for a child prodigy. The reason being, if you're a child prodigy, as you described, then you have to act a certain way.
Yeah.
You have to do 18 hours a day of practice, and you cannot go out and play cricket, and you cannot go out and go see a movie and just hang out at the, out on the street ogling at girls or anything. I mean, what a sad life for a child prodigy. but that's exactly what I want to say. A child, we all would look at somebody and say, "Oh, this 8-9-year-old kid, he's playing so beautiful. He's a prodigy, he's a child prodigy." But I don't think anybody around him or her would impose on the child the rigors of what being a shishya to a guru was all about. Because a child prodigy would be exempt from that, because he's already a prodigy. He doesn't need to spend 8 hours of practice, because it's inborn, it's there, and the talent is unique, and therefore, when you look at someone like that, you allow that child to really find his or her own way, to the point where the child looks up and says, where do I go from here? And then the guru steps in and says, this way. And so that's what I believe a child prodigy was treated like in India. And so if for some reason I was considered a child prodigy, one of the great things about learning music, or at least being around it and having it come to me in, from the age of 3 days old, all I heard in the house was tabla. It was being practiced, it was being taught, it was being heard, records, whatever, and musicians were coming in and discussions of music was going on. So that was part of it was being piped in. So if that was happening already, and being, somewhat talented helps when all that is going on. When I was 2 days old, I came home from the hospital, brought in, my mother handed me to my father. And according to our religious practices, my father was to whisper a prayer in my ear. And so he takes me in his arm, puts his lips to my ear, and starts going, da, No, he does. So my mother, being furious with him, says, what are you doing? You're supposed to say a prayer. And he very seriously says to her, this is my prayer. This is how I pray. So, and this is what he will be doing. So, why should I not teach him how to pray? So that's where the teaching began. So when you are a child and you live through hours and hours of this going on, it sort of seeps in, it's inside of you. You've got this father who for some reason is hell-bent on reciting prayers in your ear every day for an hour or 2 hours. I mean, you're helpless. You've got to take it in and say, okay already. But the fact is, that information was already being put in, I was being primed, but at the same time when I got to a point where it was time to be able to take all that and put it here or learn, I was let loose, I was left alone. The reason for that was, my father did not want my process of learning to be a chore, to be work. It wasn't getting up before dawn to milk the cow. It wasn't any of that. It had to be something that was, something that I wanted to do, something that had to come from me, that it was fun, that it was joyful, that it was something that was part of the daily routine. It wasn't something that was so awe-inspiring, which it is. This art form, any art form, classical, Western music, Indian classical music, Chinese, Japanese, whatever, if you think about it and the tradition, it's very awe-inspiring. It's mountainous. It's something that gods are made of and have made. And so when you look at it in that way, you could get scared and you may not want to indulge. So the whole idea about my learning process was to let me just take all this stuff that was kind of bubbling in here since I was 2 days old, rhythm, and now it had to be put out and printed out. I was left to myself to find my way, ask a student, what is this? And the student telling me, oh, you do this, I'll do this. And then it was okay if I wanted to go away and do something else. And it was okay if I came out because the information was already here. And when the time was right, I would want that to be printed, brought out and described and, assembled in the way it needed to be assembled. And when I was ready to do that, I would myself ask for it, or at least, act like I wanted it, and then it would be provided. So it wasn't, from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. you will do this, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. you will, eat 18 parathas with 6 glasses of lassi because you need your strength. And then from that time to 5 in the evening you will practice, you will not go to school, you will do nothing but do this. It wasn't any of that. So I am privileged, I was lucky, and I'm thankful for that kind of navigational facility provided to me to be able to find my way, sift my way through, analyze my way through this. So when I was 7, I was, doing school shows, playing in the school plays and all that and everything. So in one of those, my father did come and he saw me. And so he took me to another concert of his. I used to go to his concerts and sit behind him while he was performing. A learning process. Watch, learn, all that. Listen. So he was playing with a great musician. And somewhere along the line, those two looked at each other. They were very bad, those two. Meaning my father and the other musician. And they nodded at each other, and then my father looked at me and says, I have to step away. You know what's going on? You know the rhythm cycle? And I said, yes. I'm 7 years old. And he said, okay, can you play for a while I go? And I said, yes, I can. I did not realize, how gigantic that moment was. I was young, Just, it was made to appear to be just kind of something normal. Here, hold this while I, something like that. It was that simple. So I said, yeah, so he moved away and went off, and I sat down and I started playing the teen tal, and, the maestro was playing. And after about 20 minutes, the piece ended and everybody applauded. And I, didn't think anything of it. But that night my father said to me, when we were home having dinner, he said, do you want to really learn this seriously? The moment had come. I had shown that I wanted that moment to arrive.
But you were 7.
I was 7. I was a child prodigy, for Christ's sake. I'd been a child prodigy since I was 2 days old. I mean, it was enough already.
So at 7 you started?
Yeah, look, Akbar was king when he was 12.
That's
I mean, I have ways to go yet. Do they have child prodigies and kings?
No, we're very crazy.
No, okay. All right. So anyway, moment had come. He asked me, do you want to do this seriously? And I said, of course. I mean, God is saying, you want to come and hang out with me in heaven or wherever it is, tabla heaven? Of course I want to. He said, yes. He said, okay, tomorrow we'll start. So that's great. I had my fill of food and I go to bed, very happy. Tomorrow I'm going to start learning. And I finally have his attention, I'm going to learn. Tomorrow arrived at 3 o'clock in the morning. He woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so while everyone else slept, and my mother pretended to sleep, we sat on his bed and we talked tabla. It wasn't play tabla. Now it was time for me to understand what I was trying to tackle, what I was trying to be a part of. The history, the reverence, the great masters, what it represented, the compositions. It was not sit and practice teen tal for 8 hours. It was more about learn what you're trying to be a part of. Understand that. So for at least 3 years that went on. And in that was mixed compositions. Okay, recite this. Keep tal to this. show me how you will divide this pattern into so many rhythm cycle things and etc., etc., etc. But at the same time, this composition comes from this master. This master represented this, and it was so special about him, and etc., etc. So all that happened. So I did that from like 3 o'clock to about, say, 5:30 or 6 in the morning. Then my mother would grab me and say, okay, it's time for him to have breakfast and go to madrasa. So then I went to the madrasa and learned to recite the Quran. That happened till about 7. Then I went to school. And the school started in the church because it was St. Michael's High School. And there we sang the hymns and everything, and then we were marched to our classrooms, and then I studied that. And then I came back home, had a little snack, and started practicing, which was Indian classical music related to, connected to Goddess Saraswati, Lord Krishna, Lord Shiva, Lord Ganesha, all that. So, Islamic tradition, Catholic tradition, Hindu tradition, I was a very confused child. I mean, all that had to be put together, I mean, it was in my head. But again, imagine this, think about this. To me, going through all that was quite normal, because I was, as a young man, not made to realize the enormity of jumping from one tradition, one way of life to the next to the next. It all appeared same. The father, Pinto, didn't look any different than Maulana Ahmad. And all the tabla students used to come, whether Vinayak Ingle or Khadkar or Pandurang Salgaonkar or whatever, they all came to study. They didn't look any different. So I grew up with really an interesting combination of the religious way of life, which was a concoction of all these ways of life. But to me, they automatically fell in place as one. So and now, I'm married to a Catholic wife. My daughters are baptized. My brother is married to a Gujarati girl, and my other brother is married to a Marathi girl. And it's all so, but it does not appear that we've done something humongous or something out of the ordinary. It was just normal. So having that kind of normality helps to come to terms with what this music and art is all about. It is a way of life that involves knowing all the gods and goddesses, at the same time knowing Hazrat Nizamuddin or Amir Khusro or Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, and having someone like a great singer like Pandit Jasraj singing in Nairo Mero Allah Meherban, or having a Hindu or a Muslim singer like Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahib singing Hari Om Tat Sat. So when Ustad Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahib was asked, you are a great singer and you're singing this beautiful bhajan Hari Om Tat Sat, but it's a Hindu thing, you're a Muslim, what do you have to say about it? And he said, as far as I'm concerned, in Hindi he said, ye to Allah ka naam hai. It's another name of God. So what does it matter to me if you believe it to be somebody different? To me, it's the same. And that is the root of what Indian music is all about. Indian art and culture is all about. To having grown up in that atmosphere and to learn it, being a child prodigy, or being somebody of a generation 10 years older. All that being said and done.
Happy birthday, by the way. It's your birthday.
No, not today.
On the 9th, but since we won't be there, we should sing for him, don't you think? Happy birthday to you.
Yesterday the 5th. Oh, 4 more to go yet. I'm not born yet. I'm not even here. Anyway, so keeping all that in mind, coming to terms with all that was so much easier as a child that by the time I got to being a teenager, it was really no issue playing the music or dealing with the incredible peculiarities of the way of life of this particular art form.
So can I, one more question from the same document. It is very intriguing because what you said, I don't know if you remember this, I'm going to remind you.
I deny everything.
Okay, so I'm hoping that you might actually show us as well. What you said was, in a sense, that this was what you just described as the way you learned with your father. But you talk about a time when Ustad Ahmed Jan Khirafa came to visit. And you said, in the speaking hand, something very intriguing. You said that was the closest you came to actually sitting down and learning. And obviously it's not the same as what you
Well,
just
it is not,
described.
because that was the rigor coming into play. As I was explaining to you, learning with my father was not learning at all.
Okay.
It was just,
Just all there.
it was all there. It was being part of this process or this machinery or this invisible system that took you along and kind of showed you through the windows what's out there and explained to you what was happening without even explaining and without even talking. It's like when I was playing with Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab for 11 years, sitting here and he's here. Without saying a word, he taught me, incredible volumes of what tabla accompaniment is all about, without saying a word. And so that is the kind of way you learn. In India, we believe that knowledge, and at least knowledge in the Guru's head or in the Guru's persona, is like a fast-flowing river. Fast-flowing river. And it's up to the student to take a cup from it, or a bucket full of it, or a tank full of information from it. So it's never the teacher that teaches. It is always the student who learns. A student must inspire the teacher to part with the information. If the student does not show that he or she is capable of absorbing, that information is not going to be thrown at you at all. You've got to be able to grab it by the neck. Put your hand in the lion's mouth and say, I am capable, give it to me. The teacher would be only too happy to do it, but you must. You must, and that's very important. So that's what I was doing when I was learning with my father, or not learning with my father. I was grabbing information, inspiring him to teach. That's what happened. So whenever we sat down to actually play, he never said a word. He only played. And it was up to me to keep up. And sometimes when I was like 14 or 15 years old and I would accompany him in concert, he wasn't holding back. He was like, okay, I'm off, keep up if you can. If you can't, shut up and just sit there. So you went for it. And so that kind of learning was so much more fun. And I never thought that was learning. That was just part of growing up. It was just part of being, involved in a process that was just normal, just everyday routine. So that's why I said that the first time I actually thought that I was learning in that way was when Thirakua Kansa gave me some compositions. Because that was the process. It was like I was there and he was here and he was saying, okay, learn this. And then he would play it and say, this is how it's played and stuff. The actual process of, learn to spell A for apple or B for bat or whatever. That's when it came that way. Not that I was not capable of absorbing that information, but his way of doing it was more formal teaching, like going to a classroom and sitting there, not being in a living room and being a part of the teaching. you learn so much when you are part of the scenery. You're a fly on the wall. You learn a lot. And that's how I learn most of my music. My father here, his 3 or 4 students there, and he's teaching them. I'm 5 or 6 years old and I'm there. But that information is going in because that prayer had already been done for so many years, 2 or 3 years, that it made sense. So when he said something, I knew what he was saying. And all I had to do was put it in the right order, what he was saying. And so it was easy to do that. So when the time came to put it on the instrument, half the work was done. So that's what I meant about Tirakwa Khan Sahib, that the process was not the same as learning from my father, or just being part of the process. And so when Tirakwa Khan Sahib would teach, what taught me that when he was staying with us, it was just, the one thing that made sense to me when he was talking to me was the tonal issues. How you must take the phrases and you must take syllables that pretty much, when you say it, they are different, but when you play it, they sound different as well. But sometimes when you say tete or dhati, so when you say tete or dhati, it's the same sound. Te and ti. So he said, try to make it different. Try to find ways to be able to have your tabla speak it exactly that way. So that te remains te and dhati changes. It's not, but it changes. Ever so slightly, just move it so that it appears different. So dhati dhage na is not dhage. So it's a tonal difference, a texture difference, which a tabla player would understand better. But so that's something that brought me a lot of information in just that one little sentence. And I was able to try and find a way to be able to play phrases in a way that they actually sounded like the way they were spoken. And that is an important part of playing tabla.
So I'm going to ask you one more question, then ask if you will play. Yes, and it is said about you that you are this sort of repository of so many different traditions of tabla playing.
Yeah, I said I was confused.
But what comes out of there is fabulous. So, about Ustad Habibuddin Khan.
Yes.
Or that wonderful line which says, "Buzurgon ke liye izzat rakhna hamare music ki pehli tameez hai." Yes. And which is that the respect for our teachers, our elders, is perhaps the first pehli tameez, the first lesson that we learn.
But it's also a metaphor.
But a manner from.
It's a metaphor.
A metaphor, indeed.
In the teacher, you are actually respecting the tradition.
Yes.
You're offering your, prayers and reverent, good wishes to the tradition itself, because the Guru represents that tradition. Guru will be the first one to say, "I'm just a student," because this process of being an artist or a creative artist is a process that will continue till the day you die. You cannot possibly say, "I'm a master." Somebody asked Charles Lloyd, the great jazz saxophone player, got off the stage and somebody said to him, "Maestro, you were perfect today." And he turned around and said, "Son, I haven't played good enough to quit yet." That is a profound statement. That's deep. If you think you're the cat's meow and you've done the most incredible thing ever, and this is the best, you might as well hang up your boots.
So can I ask if you can show us, say, some of the things that you think are in your tabla playing that you have got from, say, some of the teachers that you hold in very high regard?
Well, I'm not, this is another, I want to put something, set something right. people say that I play many different styles of, first of all, you should know that there are different schools of tabla, and there are great masters who represent each one of those schools, and there are many students who learn from different styles. So therefore, there are differences in playing of many tabla players. So that's what's incredible and unique and special about tabla. But when you talk about, say, Ustad Tirakwa Khan Sahib, he played all styles. He was not a person, he would say, this is Delhi, this is Farkabad, this is Lucknow, he would say, and this is Punjab, and he would say that, and this is Pura, and he would play all these styles. And in those days, the concerts were limited to a chamber, a chamber environment. So when I went to hear, say, Tirakwa Khan Sahib play a solo concert, Tirakwa Khan, Ahmad Jan Tirakwa Khan, was one of the truly universally acknowledged great tabla player of the past century. And so a lot of tabla players of my generation and before my generation respected him because of how he brought an incredible variety to tabla playing by being able to introduce all different styles of tabla playing. Just to clarify. So Tirakwa Khan Sahab played Delhi, if he felt like it. There's an interview of his in Sangeet Natak Academy archives where he is asked, would you please demonstrate Farkabad? And he does that. Will you please demonstrate Delhi style? And he does that. Would you demonstrate Punjab? And he does that. So he learned everything and he played everything, and that's what made him such an incredible tabla player, because everybody loved him, whether it was a student of Delhi style or Punjab style or anybody. So I grew up watching him, and so did many other tabla students. And so the idea of being able to incorporate many different styles of tabla playing came from watching someone like him play. If he can do it, it's fine. If Charlie Parker can play a solo and use all 12 notes in the song, and the ones that are not even in the whole chorus, that's fine. Because if he does it, he makes it right. It doesn't matter. So Charlie Parker can do that, Tirakwa Khan Sahib can do that, so we should be able to at least try something. So people like me started doing this. Another thing, tabla player of today had to do that. We had to be able to play many different styles. And the reason for that was we could travel. We weren't limited to living in Lucknow only, or living in Delhi only, or living in Lahore only. In the old days, 150 years ago, you hardly got out of your little town. So your style was unique, what you did was unique, and nobody on the other side of India really saw you. It's a big country. So when we started traveling as tabla players, we were expected to accompany a vocalist today, a sitarist another day, a dancer another day, play a solo the next day. And so we were supposed to do all these different things. Now, if we were to adhere to just one style of playing, we wouldn't be able to do that. How am I able to accompany Girja Devi, a great singer from Banaras, singing Kajri or Tumri, the folk tradition of Banaras, if I don't know anything about it, coming from Punjab? I must know about it, or else I wouldn't be able to do justice to it. So it became important for tabla players of my generation to learn and learn all styles and be able to play with everybody. So I wasn't the only one who did that. The great tabla maestro Sapan Chaudhary, who's the teacher at the Ayyapur College and one of the great and one of my favorite, Lucknow style. But when asked, can play anything. And then when he's playing with Hari Prasad Chaurasia, he will play that way. When he's playing with Ali Akbar Khan Sahib, he played that way, and so on and on. So we had to know and we had to learn. So that's what I did. I learned that, if I had to play Delhi style, then I would use the 2 fingers. But I shouldn't just limit myself to that, because if I have to play Farrukhabad, I need to add this, or I have to need, and then if I have to play an open style, I should be able to use my hands, or just play Delhi or Lucknow, I should be able to play. Play fast and all that stuff. By the way, tabla, I should say something about tabla, no? Yeah? Okay. So, good laughter coming from that end. It's great. Tabla is a very young instrument. Maybe 10 years older. No, it's a very young instrument. The reason why I say that, it's only about 300 years old. The Indian music tradition, the North Indian music tradition, is considered by whoever you listen to. Somebody would say 2,000, somebody would say 3,000, somebody would say 5,000, somebody would say thousands and thousands and thousands. So it's whoever you want to believe. It's about like from here to there. So tabla considered is only about 300 odd years old, and the reason for its arrival is because somewhere in the 1700s, Dhrupad, the traditional art form or the vocal style, started to move backwards because there were other instruments invented due to the Mughal and Persian influences: sitar, sarangi, sarod, surbahar, sursingar. So there were many instruments that were invented that were tonally subtle instruments. And the pakhawaj, which was the cylindrical instrument that was used to accompany Dhrupad style, was a little too strong and technically not quite efficient to be able to play with these instruments. So some other instrument had to be invented or found. There used to be an instrument called dhukkad. Dhukkad was like twice the size of tabla. They played in the pakhawaj style, and in Punjab, where they used to not have this black thing, but they used to have whole wheat flour put on here to create the resonance and the bass tone. So dhukkad was played. So somebody must have called some inventor from Japan who miniaturized it. So suddenly a big dhukkad became smaller. The reason for that was, when you were in the presence of the royalty, you did not sit. You were not allowed to sit. So you had to stand and perform. So you had to have instruments that, were small enough, so that you can handle the weight of and still play. So the tabla, when it was invented, there was a device or some kind of concoction that went like this, with a little thing here, so tied to your bed, and then it sat here. And the tabla master who played would have to play like this. You'd have to be physically very strong to be able to handle that, and the neck had to be very strong to be able to handle that kind of pressure. So you played it that way. And so tabla was invented, and because there was Persian, Arabic, Turkish, Mughal influences, and in that part of the world, all drums are known as tabla. The darbuka is known as tabla. So the name tabla was given, and it stuck, meaning drum. So that's how it happened. And through that period and 100 years hence, tabla started to find its way into the system and accompaniment and so on. But only in the last 180 odd years it really came into its own. So it is still being developed. It is still, being refined. There's about 70% of the pakhawaj repertoire, the rhythm instrument before, which is still to be transposed onto the tabla technically, because it's a different technique of playing. So, we are finding our way to go with it. Now the advent of sound system changed that. And we started to get very subtle with it. Instead of going instead of that, we started getting into, not that, but getting into subtlety, some kind of sensual movements started to emerge into the tabla playing. The tones became more important. So now you've got the ability on the instrument because of this microphone. If the microphone was not there, I wouldn't be able to make it appear that big, that full, that in your face. So, so the tone has resonance. So I have something to play with. So this goat skin, clay, iron dust, rice water, some other kind of strange spices that the tabla maker won't tell us. No, really, they won't. They won't show you how to make this because this is the important part. It's like, the wings on the airplane. That's a technology that's very secret with whoever the company is. So same thing here. So the making of this siyahi or God is very special. This is what vibrates and creates the resonance. So you have to it's a paste that you paste it on, rub it in. When you rub it in, I think I have one. It's my vanity case right here. You rub it in with this stone. You rub it in until it settles in. Now only the tabla maker knows how much to apply, how many layers to put. All I have to tell him is, I want a tabla that sounds really good in D pitch, which is this. Then he will make the layers and everything, and after putting 7, 8 layers and rubbing it in, he'll give it to me. I'll touch it, play it and say, oh, it's not quite right yet, it's not balanced, it doesn't resonate enough. He'll say, okay, and then he'll pretend like he's doing something right. And then he'll give it back to you. And then I want to, make him think that I know that this job. So I will say, yeah, it's sounding a little better. Can you do something more? And so on and on. So that's what happens. But that's important. The straps are buffalo hide tied down in here. And the pegs hold the skin down. So if you want to make it go up in pitch, you make the pegs go down as high as they can, as down as they can to make it tight, and then you use the tuning hammer to tune it. This is where the Beatles got it, Maxwell Silver. So, forehand for tuning it up, backhand for tuning it down. So that's with this one. Resonance, same kind of skin, same kind of black thing tied down here. It's not wood, it's metal. And this one is not tuned. This can be tuned to a pitch. This is not tuned to a pitch, but has tones. So you have tones available. And so on and on, So you could do that, or you could play popular tunes like right? You've heard of that, right? Or the reason why I'm showing you this is that there is a technique which way you can play slow or you can play fast on just one hand. So you use the heel of the wrist to slide, pressure, and do the tones accordingly, and you use the tip to play. Here you use this part of the hand on the right. And this is a muscular tradition, so technical piano, so each finger does its own thing and they interact together, so you can play fast without appearing to play fast. And you don't have to wallop it like a djembe or a conga or something, you know. And when we are trained in a way where each finger must have the strength of the full hand. So same. Right? Each finger must be able to have a dynamic range. So then you can, you know, you know, because when we play fast, you know, it's easy, right? But we got to make it look like it's hard. You know, so it's fun. It's a lot of, you know, interesting thing. But it's an instrument that has emotive qualities, has a language that you can speak and you can play. And it expresses visually and audio, and has tone, notes, rhythm, everything. So it's kind of a very versatile instrument. I took you off track.
That's all right.
I hope you didn't mind.
No.
So anyway, tabla is a very young instrument, but only 10 years older.
Only 10 years.
And it's still being developed, and that's how it came into play. But in those days, they did not travel, so they did not, tabla players did not attempt to play different styles. They stuck to their own. But these days, if I'm to play Delhi style, I would try to use these two and these two. So now you think that you won't be able to play fast with just the 4 fingers, but you can. And depending on your practice, you can go. So you can just these, or you know, you can add this. It's all one. It started with simple phrase like which went to just, you know, slowly each finger is getting added. So if a simple thing like Tere Kita, Delhi, else, Lucknow, Farrukhabad, it can be different ways. Like it can be, instead of these two, it's a 4-beat phrase, Tere Ki, Delhi. Anywhere else? Or, so you've got both. Or. So there are subtle changes. Words are the same, language is the same, just playing technique is a little bit different. It's like having do re mi fa sol la ti do sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. How that happened, I have no clue. But it happened. So, especially me singing it, I don't know how. So, but anyway, I wanted to touch on something. I don't know how much time we have left. 3 more minutes? Okay. I wanted to touch on, I mean, when you talk about 300 years ago or 250 years ago, tabla was invented and stuff and all. Music was in the courts of the Nawabs and the Maharajas. And they were the ones who subsidized it, who brought musicians as court musicians, just like in the Renaissance period in Italy or Austria or something. Same thing happened. Great maestros were there, and each Maharaja or Nawab would boast about his cachet of great masters. I've got Ustad so-and-so, what have you got? And you say, I've got Ustad so-and-so and Pandit so-and-so. And somebody say, well, oh yeah, you too, fine, but I've got Maharaj this and Maharaj that and Ustad this and Pandit that. So what do you got? So all this was happening in those days. So in the courts, the music became much more of an entertainment form. It assumed a kind of a courtesan-like atmosphere, and it kind of did not have this, and because of that, it gradually lost its social standing as an art form to be revered, loved, respected, and so on and on. It became more of something to entertain yourself by. I remember Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab telling me that when he was a court musician in Jodhpur, he'd be a court musician, always on call, like a surgeon would be. But if the Maharaja couldn't sleep at 1 o'clock in the morning, he would be called and said, you have to come over and play a sleep rag. And then Maharaj and Ali Akbar Khan Sahab would come and he would sit on the carpet. By then, you were allowed to sit because you were now in the 20th century, early 20th century. And so he would sit and he would softly play some raga or something until the Maharaj would fall asleep, and then he would quietly withdraw. So, it was that kind of a thing. There were many famous female singers who were known as courtesans, but they sang and they were beautiful, great singers like Kesar Bai Kerkar, Mogu Bai Kurdikar, Jaddan Bai, and so many of them. And so the music became a little bit more, second class, for the entertainment of the high gentry. And I remember in my days as a young man being invited or called upon to go accompany an instrumentalist in a private concert in some rich person's home. And then when we arrived there, we were told that you can wait in the kitchen and be fed, whatever you want to eat and all this thing. When everybody's ready, we'll call you to come and play. So every now and then the door would open of the kitchen and I would look in the big living room and lawn. There were the beautiful people moving around, having their drinks and talking and everything, and the food was being served and everything. And then if and when they were ready, then we would, let's have some music, and then, call the musicians. And it was like that, even in my time, the young age. So I think the musicians were feeling that proper respect and reverence was being pulled away from the art, and it was not being given, and there had to be some way to be able to bring it back. And so they started to point out to the listeners the root of where the music came from. The music came from the temples of India. In those days, it was connected to divinity. Lord Krishna played the flute, Saraswati played veena, Narada held his tanpura, Ganesh played the pakhavaj, Shiva played the damru. I mean, it was all there. And in the old mythology, the great warrior kings were all musicians and painters and poets and all that. So it was an important part of the process of being somebody special, that you learn these things. So I think it was not until the time of, I would say, like Pandit Omkarnath Thakur, because there was Ustad Fayaz Khan of the Agra Gharana, who was the great master and everybody loved him when he performed. But nobody invited him socially to dinner or anything, because, they were musicians. And so, but he did not sing in that way where he just sang for entertainment, and many of the great songs that he sang, Banao batiya chalo kahe ko jhuti banao, one of those jan 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 payal, all that. Those were songs that he sang and made popular, but again relegated to be an entertainer but not a social person. Pandit Omkarnath Thakur came along and he really asserted that this music needed to have that respect. So he would make sure that everybody understood that. I saw him in Indore when I was 13 or 14. Before he came on the stage was cleared, because in those days many artists performed back to back. So the stage was cleared, and then two of his students would come with a carpet, and they would put the carpet down, because there's something special was to happen, and the carpet was put down. 4 students would come with tanpuras, a drone instrument, and sat in the back. And then the musicians were not allowed to sit on the carpet. They had to be off the carpet. And then Omkarnath Ji himself would come and he would sit down. And then he would sing. And one of the most famous compositions of his was that Mataja Mataja Jogi. Yeah, how does that go? I mean, you want to know what it was, right? I want to know what it was. It was something that he sang at the end of the concert, but everybody waited for that, and then he would sing Mat ja mat ja mat ja jogi, something like that, but he would know better if he would choose to tell us. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at is that the bhakti bhav, which is the devotional aspect of Indian music, started to come back up. D.V. Paloskar ji sang what? Finally.
Janaki Nath Sahaya Janaki Nath Sahaya Kaun bigad kare nar tero kaun bigad kare nar tero Janaki Nath
So what am I, chopped liver? He sings one little line and everybody's going, woo! I've been going over this for an hour and it's like I get laughter.
We have time, I think. Are we all right on time? We have time for Couple more questions?
Well, before you go to the question, let me finish this. Then you have to have time for one question.
All right.
Okay, sorry. What I want to do is pay my respects to and give credit to two states in India which actually nurtured and popularized Indian classical music back and brought it in a way where its respect for its roots became very visible. And that's one of the reasons why musicians of today are socially acceptable, because they now, everybody understands, represent divinity, represent something very special and unique in the music. The generation has rediscovered music in a way that harks back to its old glory. And so we now, in the same household where I sat in the kitchen, eating, waiting to be brought out to play, I am invited to a cocktail or to dinner, to sit there and be a part of. They don't know that it was me back then. And I don't tell them too, but so that's what happened. But two states, Bengal and Maharashtra. Bengal? Maharashtra? Bengal's okay, anyway, so Bengal and Maharashtra really nurtured and preserved and popularized Indian classical music. And the reason for that was people like Rabindranath Tagore or Nazrul Islam. They were great poets, great literary geniuses, and they made it possible for the music to be a part of their poetry and raga music. Similarly, in Maharashtra, the theatre took it over, the musical theatre, and brought Indian classical music into the theatre. And also the classical artists started singing abhangs, bhajans, Haveli Sangeet, and so on. And so that really brought the audiences in millions into the halls to listen to the concerts, because now the musicians were not only playing Indian classical music, but also playing the music that actually harked to the divine source. Yes, what's up? Rabindra Sangeet, Nazrul Geeti were in the West Bengal or Bengal area, but in Maharashtra, coming all the way from Kolhapur, Miraj, under the guidance of great maestros like Abdul Karim Khan Sahab, Bere Wahid Khan Sahab, Savai Gandharv, and then Mogubai Kurudikar, Mallikarjun Marsur, Firoz Dastur, Pandit Bhimsen Joshi, Jitendra Abhisheki ji, his teacher. So many of the great masters, they arrived in Maharashtra. They really brought the music to the common people through the stage. Natya Sangeet, which was really composed in classical music. An example of Natya Sangeet. S'il vous plaît, monsieur. It's the first time I'm getting to accompany him, so it's a lot of fun.
Deva
But it's very much steeped in Indian classical music, and it managed to preserve and nurture the music in such a way that now I would have to say that Indian classical music audiences the world over have grown 500%, and that's good to see, and you're here, and that's great to see, and I think Doctor has a question.
All because of you.
No.
Guys.
Blame him, yeah, absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, Zakir Hussain.
Mahesh Kawal. Well, we talked about classical music in the theaters, which was what we just heard, Natya Sangeet. But one of the important addition in the music was, of course, the devotional aspect, which was the Abhang, Hariri Sangeet, and so on. People like, after D.V. Paluskarji sang that, Janaki Nath, and then Payuri Maine Ram Ratan Dhan Payu. So that kind of stuff. And then Pandit Bhimsenji and Pandit Jasrajji really led this resurgence in really making bhakti power, the emotional aspect of the music as an important element of their performance. So Abhang, came into play, and so what I would like to do is ask you know who to give us the punk. I mean, a punk.
चंद्रभागेच्या पाण्यात अंग विठ्ठलाचे नाम घेऊ, विठ्ठलाचे नाम घेऊ भूनी
Why would we not like Indian classical music if we heard it? So there's a lot to this art form which we have not touched upon because time constraint. We haven't talked about tabla, its repertoire, its different styles and gharanas and all those other things. But somewhere along the line I might be able to convince Dr. Barclay to make it possible for us to be able to explore those areas of public. So we'll do it, and thank you all very much for being here. And thank you, Doc, and
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
and
you.
Don't call us, we'll call you.
Ladies and
Thanks,
gentlemen,
Mahesh Kali.
once again.